I like one though.
What can we do? Yes,
I pull down.
I'm not walking on the table.
Zertinos. Yeah. Okay. Zertinos and Mykonos. And Mykonos, yeah. Zertinos and Mykonos and Delos. And Mykonos, yeah.
Okay, Mykonos.
And these small items there? Oh, Pharos is just, we sent the bad guys there.
Oh, it's like South Africa.
Yes. Should we start?
Yes.
We ready?
Yes.
Kalispera. Good evening. I could say good evening in 10 or 12 languages if I could, because that's how many are represented here. It's a very small but very international meeting, and it's a real pleasure to have the press here and to have to my left here Andreas Galoglu, who is the vice mayor, a geologist, and the chief proponent of the Síro Geopark project.
Who's that guy?
Which is why I said it would be fitting that he would start by telling us a few words before we get specific about this conference that has happened in Athens and is continuing here. Maybe a few words of welcome from Hermoupoli. Andrea.
Well,
Speak up.
it's a great honor to have you here, and I represent the new mayor. We will begin our work from September 1st, and I think that what is going to be here with your efforts can collaborate with our efforts for the Geopark project, which has started about 2 years ago. It was an idea from Martin. The soul of the project is Martin. Without him, there would be nothing. So that's the truth, and the truth has to be said. Step by step, we managed to submit a proposal to a national funding program, which was approved last year. But after that, it had to be modified, and with the help of Martin, we modified that, and we have the approval of the modified proposal now. And we're just about to begin implementation. So it's a good timing, something happens and everything fits together at this period. So it's a great honor to have you here, and we will be at your side with any way you ask for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. Maybe before I say anything and give the word to the chief organizer, I should introduce him. Lasse Sørensen is from Denmark, from Copenhagen. He's a chief researcher who is really responsible that we're all here now. Without him, we would not be here. Not because of his organizational skills alone, but because just over a year ago, or not even a year ago, I led a small field trip for a group from Apάνω Μεριά, and in the evening, it was a beautiful day like today, in the evening I got an email from one of the participants, the local participants in Síros, and she said that she had seen a report that Síros archaeology was going perhaps much further back than we had all known, and the person who wrote this report was called Lasse Sørensen. Well, the next day Lasse got an email from me, because I said, yes, we're very interested in this. And this is how it started, and started only because I happened to be made aware of. I had no idea. I'm not an archaeologist. I'm just a simple geologist. Not even. But it was because somebody said, hey, there's something cool at the horizon that I wrote, and found that Lasse was very interested in making a workshop. in Athens and with the field trip here in Syros, because it was his work that showed that at least there was a good chance that some of the stone tools that were made in the Neolithic could come from Syros and may have gone very far to Turkey, to various parts of Eastern Europe, and be found there. And the task will be to test this hypothesis. It's a hypothesis. It is not the truth yet. But so I was very, very pleased when I heard that Lasse had gone right ahead and found some financing and made a network of people from all over the world who are working on these particular materials. And he will tell you what this network is, what the goals are, why we are here, and then maybe you have questions, or I asked forward 2 of the world specialists on this material to come and answer questions regarding the material or the importance of this same material elsewhere in the world. And we have a specialist who knows primarily, well, you know, George knows occurrences probably all over the world, but primarily from Central America, and then a lot from Asia. And in Japan, an outstanding figure, and they have worked together and written some very classic papers about the topic. The same rocks again are used and were used a long time ago to make stone tools. So we have specialists from around the world, but those are 2, and if you have questions, they would be the ones to give you answers. But now the time is to ask Lasse to say a few words about the workshop in Athens and what we are doing there.
Okay, so what we're interested in overall is human mobility.
Speak up.
Human mobility, that's our main goal. So how did people exchange objects, and how did they travel around in different parts of the world? And we can track that by looking at the different objects that they produce. In this case, it was Neolithic axes, and we think that a lot of these Neolithic axes were probably quarried here on Syros, and then it was exchanged in a huge network covering all of the Aegean area, including Turkey as well, and possibly also beyond that. And that's the hypothesis. And we looked at some of these axes around the different museums, and now we want to do some geology on it as well. So we want to do provenance analysis both on these rocks and then compare it with the stone tools, these axes.
Provenance analysis means making the link between where the rock came from and where the tool was found.
Yeah.
So it's linking the two.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we think that Syros might have been a meeting place going all the way back to the Neolithic, where people would scout around to find the most suitable and best material, and we think that they found it here on Syros, and then they exchanged it, and through this exchange network we can see and understand human mobility. So that's one of the goals. So by doing that, we have to do these provenance analysis. So we are actually in this network linking people together in an interdisciplinary research, where we are having geological questions of the provenance of the actual rocks, but we're also combining with the questions of how these rocks were produced and the biographies of these axes, and by that we can understand human interaction and human mobility. So that's one of the goals, and we see that different researchers working on these particular rocks, they are having the same challenges. So if you're working in the Caribbean, where there are some researchers from, the problems and the challenges are the same, and the questions are often the same. So we can create some sort of synergy by discussing the different overall patterns of the problems we're trying to solve. So in the Caribbean, they actually posing some of the same questions as we are trying to figure out here in the Eastern Mediterranean area as well as in Asia. So it's the same. And that's why I wanted to bring all these people together so that we could discuss how we should move forward with these questions, which are essentially the same, understanding human mobility. And we are, there are young scholars, and there are some really trained and high qualified, world-class leading scholars. You see them here. So it's a good mixture of people coming from around 10 countries, maybe more. And so we're very pleased that we could have this meeting. It was funded by the Danish Ministry of Education and Science, and it's part of their international program to create new networks. Networks which didn't exist before, and we're trying to get that started with this first meeting. So we had a conference in Athens and then this excursion to Síro, and next year we'll continue a second meeting which will occur in Japan.
Want to say 2 words about that?
Well, I'm a geological scientist and working on jade and related high-pressure metamorphic rocks. And next year, we will have a same workshop in Japan, Sendai. And Sendai is we had a big earthquake happened in 2011, right? And after that, 2 years ago, jadeite jade was selected as officially national stone of Japan. The reason because jade was used in ancient culture in Japan, but the jade was formed in deeper portion of subduction zone. The earthquake happened. So we officially selected jade as a national stone, and jade is very useful to educate what is subduction zone. So I'm very pleased to having second meeting in Japan.
Tatsuki Tsuchimori from Sendai University. I will give you the exact name afterwards. And actually this would be very fitting because you represent the eastern section, if you will, of the world of jadeite, and I don't know, you represent the rest, huh?
That's George.
George is sort of the father of a lot of this work.
The worldwide guy.
The worldwide guy. Want to say 2 words about the world importance of the material?
So I've been working on this material since the mid-'80s in Guatemala, Central America, which was the source of this tool stone, as well as a stone that could be used for decorative purposes, for talismans and other purposes. And we were trying to answer the question of whether the Asians who emigrated across the Bering Strait to the New World had brought this material with them, or whether they found it in the New World. And most of us was saying that's crazy. They didn't bring it. They just found it because pre-metal civilizations needed tools. So they need a tough rock that can work as a tool. It can be shaped into blades, knives, pounders, hammers, because you need a rock that will not break. And so what we study is this kind of rock that doesn't break, and Guatemala is a major source. So I did a lot of work on that. I've also been to Myanmar, which is another country that has produced the largest amount of this material on the planet. And because of that interest, I've gotten involved in other localities in Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Japan, here. So, and it's relatively rare. There are only 19 known localities with this material, and usually the quantities are not that large. So our ancestors were very much more sensitive to the surroundings than we are. We've become civilized, I guess is the right term. We process material, whereas they were very close to the ground. You know, they grew their food, and things had to come. If you couldn't get it from the organic world, you had to take it from the earth. And so tools was something that defines humanity in terms of how it operates. And so tool stones is extremely important. And we're talking about cultures that go about back at least 7,000 years that have been using stones like this. And they've been using other stones for even longer, but this particular kind of tool stone goes back to the early Neolithic. So I come from a museum. I work at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. So I am a geologist, but work with others who are archaeologists and anthropologists. So it's a perfect place to kind of do these kinds of studies, because the thing that I find most interesting is I have found archaeological objects which we didn't understand where they came from, and by doing searching I was able to find new localities we didn't know about before because humans had used them. So if humans have used something, we should be able to figure out where did they come from, and that's the geologist's portion, to figure out. So you have to analyze it. You have to say, what is it chemically, structurally, and then start hunting for suitable materials. And so what I find interesting is when I started, almost nobody was interested in this. And now it's actually become something that is more interesting than some of the other rocks that people used to look at that occur with this material. So for me, it's been an exciting career to be able to try and do something that others hadn't done. It wasn't fashionable. That makes it difficult to do things that aren't fashionable. But it's important. And, you know, trying to understand how humans, how society, cultures develop, how they use things, that's exciting. I mean, for anybody. You don't have to be a geologist. That just is, you know, it's our curiosity about who we are and where we've come from and how our ancestors did stuff. And so, you know, we've learned things today that we didn't know before, right? We learned things today. And discovery is the most exciting part of being a scientist or, you know, archaeologist or geologist. Discovery. You find something nobody knew before. It's all a lot of hard work, but when you make a discovery, that's where you get your excitement, what I call your jollies. That's what you work for. And so we've been here and we've done it today, and we look forward to this project prospering so that it continue, and these people, the archaeologists, can really hopefully learn exactly when did this activity occur, because we don't know at this point.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, George. This is a perfect summary of why it's exciting and why it's important. And if something is exciting and important, generally it gains visibility, but not always very fast. And you have pointed to that. Visibility came slowly. It grew slowly. People did not initially say, oh yes, George Harlow should do this. He had to work for it. And I think it's one of the things that I'm discovering here on Síro's with the Síro's Geopark project, is that initially there is always excitement that now we're finding, well, we have to do the work in order to make sure that people realize just how special their island is. They don't know. And my motivation for the museum and for the Geopark was always, well, let's make sure that people are more aware how special this place is. And what I have discovered just in the process of this project more and more is that this implies a danger. If you want to get somebody excited, you have to inform him. If you want to get somebody involved, you have to tell them things. But now we're talking about things which are rare, even at the world scale, rare. And that means that we need to be careful how much we can actually share, because it's very easy to come and destroy the evidence, not even knowing why it is so important, just because you want to have it for yourself. And it's a problem we have to address and have to solve also with the media. How do we report, and what can we and what should we not put in front of everyone, because we don't want it to be destroyed. It's a learning process for me, at least. It's something new. I always thought that, well, I can share whatever I have understood with whomever, and that will be for the benefit of all. And here I'm finding out this may not always be true here. So I would wish to inform the press and keep informing the press about what we're doing and where we're going and so on. But I also would wish to not keep things secret at all, but to make sure that we don't, by exposing everything, destroy it all. And it means sensitive reporting, it means checking what is reported, and that will be a thing I will ask before we publish something. Let's make sure that we see what's to be published, only in the interest of protecting material that could not be replaced. It is unique, really unique, not the everyday little bit unique, really unique. So maybe I should stop with that, because it's an open question. I don't have the answer. I don't know how we do that really yet. We will have to learn. And we can learn, of course, from people who have been doing it for a while, but they have the same concerns, exactly. Mineral hunters are like drug addicts, and the mineral industry will shy away from nothing. So having important sources for anything means that they could get taken away in very little time. It will be a problem how we do this to make sure that we can inform people without getting rid of the material altogether. And I don't know the answer to that. But with that, I don't know if you wish to add to this now. Otherwise, I would say, if you have any questions to whoever.
I do have a couple of questions.
Please do.
Forgive me for my poor English first. The first question is for Mr. Sorensen.
Yes.
Perhaps he will be able to ask.
Yes.
When this geological analysis will take place, this provenance analysis, and when will you have the first results from this analysis? In order to take the information
Yes.
from the where and
Yes.
where it was produced,
Yes.
these stone tools,
Well,
and when
okay.
they were found.
So we have we are doing it. We are processing it right now, actually, and we're doing it in Copenhagen. In Copenhagen, yeah, University of Copenhagen, and together with GEUS, GEUS.
Of
So
Geological Survey of Denmark.
Yeah, and Greenland.
Oh, and then Greenland.
Greenland, yes. So so that's a geological part, and then we have the archaeological part, because I'm from the National Museum in Denmark, and we have assemblage of axes from the Aegean, which came to the museum in 1887. So it was bought by a private person there, and he bought a lot of axes from different kind of people, and so it's in our collection. And there are a few of these types of axes which we want to compare, and they're actually both from the Aegean but also from Turkey, and all the way from. There's also some which are found in Egypt. So it's actually quite a huge area. So we hope that we'll have some results later this year.
In any case, there will be known at
Then-
the next conference in Japan?
Then yes, we hope so. We will have more results for the next conference in Japan, and then of course we'll start writing up a scientific paper for that, and then we hope that these results can also be used in the geopark in Síro as dissemination of this phenomenon here of the human mobility and exchange during the Neolithic, because it's a good story. Because it really tells you that Síro was also a meeting place in the Neolithic times. So you could expect to meet other peoples when you came here, because these people were also looking for the best raw material around, and they found it here for the access. Mm-hmm.
We didn't really know about the civilization of Síros Keros at certain prehistoric time. These results may reshape the history,
Yes.
pushing back
Yes.
all this period
Yes.
Further back.
Yes.
And what will be the implications of this theory if it is
Yes.
proved,
Well, it will tell you something about how big these exchanges are, and so how wide they are. But it will also tell you something about human beings which need some sort of labels, like people are driving in special cars today, or they drink mythos or whatever, and then that's a label, and that's actually the same with these axes. When we look at the assemblage of it, they shine through these axes. You definitely notice them. They're very green, so you notice them right away. And it's like kind of a label or a passport saying, well, look at me, I'm part of this network. So that's like a mental implication of gaining a deeper understanding of human beings, really. And when there's these meeting places, like these quarry site on Síro, well, they are also creating like you're meeting in a mutual way. So you can expect if you go there, you can meet other people there. It's not like you will take something away from people, but it's like a meeting place. And that also creates something in your mind. It creates a civilization of your mind and an interaction of your mind. And that can be very fruitful. And I mean, these Neolithic societies, that's really what they needed. And that's what they are doing. They're building the civilization that we are sitting on right now.
Also trading networks.
And the training networks.
So we have to use money to acquire things. So back in Neolithic, they had to trade. Mm-hmm. Right? Some people still trade today, but there must have been material coming to Síro in order for the people in Síro who were producing this material to give it to the people who were coming from somewhere else. So it may change totally the ideas of what the trading relationships were in this part of the Aegean, for at least that particular material. And so presumably there is other material that was needed, and that's part of the trading network, and that's part of the questions. The other questions would be is exactly when did this happen? And this is one of the things our colleagues are trying to work on, is when did it how can we date when this happened? Because the rocks will not tell us a date. The rocks will tell us they're 150 to 65 million years old. That tells us it's useless information for
us, for now.
anthropology.
Yeah. We know when the rocks were formed. We would like to know when the stone tools were formed from the rocks. And there are methods, and we discussed in the field how we should do that today, here. At very specific sites, we said, what should one do here to give a date, a specific date, radiocarbon date, to this production site? Because we were looking at some production sites, which to me was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It was completely new. And maybe I should add something that this Eastern network, if that's what it was, involving Síro mostly, has a further Central European counterpart, which is relatively well researched. Almost all the stone axes from Iberia to England to Scandinavia, all of Central Europe, seem to come from a very small area in Italy, Monviso and Bauga. But the ones that we find in the east, according to what Lasse has shown, don't match these materials. They're different source. So there may be an EU, a proto-EU in Italy and God knows what, and then a proto-Cycladic EU, or maybe not EU, a little further east. And we don't know. So it's really, when you ask, well, how would it change what we know? I think it would change very much the role of what we know about the trade in the eastern part of the Mediterranean and anything going further east. So it's the root of a civilization.
Now the whole project of Geopark Apάνω Μεριά, how can you help combine together all this stuff and probably being the main focal point of research, of meeting people with certain skills and inquiries, and be the strategic.
But how exactly it can be then shown in the Απάνω Μεριά park along the paths and so on, I cannot tell you now because of that dilemma that I told you before. However, what I can tell you now, that in the plans that we have for the museum now, which are very specific thanks to a lady sitting behind you, very specific plans, there is a section on the archaeology of Syros, and rather than starting with Syros Keros, Bronze Age, it may very well start quite a bit earlier, and we will look at some material again tomorrow, and I think we may have a section that really grows for the archaeological world, grows into a new discovery section for everyone. And that part will be definitely at the museum, no question about that. But the other part I truly don't know right now. It's a dilemma. You know, you could do many things. You could excavate the whole sites and take them away to the museum God knows where. New York? No. Anyway, or you could protect it all. Or you could say, well, we research it and then God knows. But we would like to have a good compromise. The materials should be here for the people of Syros and the visitors from God knows where. They should see it. They should appreciate a single rock lying there has more value than a single rock I take home. More value, because it is where it belongs. It is a cultural relic. You don't take a church home either. It belongs where it is. And this is not so easy for simple rocks. So, yeah, we will find a solution.
Let's start by not marking it on Google Earth.
We had a policy about that today. We will not put things on the social networks that will identify where we were. It just would make no sense. The next time we come, it'll be gone.
About the local authorities and the project about the Geopark, Andreas Yaloglu is one of the basic they have pushed this project all this time. We know about the bureaucracy in Greece. We know about all the difficulties that we have in the central government. When do you hope that this project will take place in reality, in practice? When we will have the first things that we will see in terms of construction and all the permits that we have to take from the senior authorities? Do you have any a plan that we say that 2020 something?
The project
Do you have
the project
something
will
short,
last
at
to
least?
2022. That's when the project ends, has to. But there are two parts. There's the geopaths and there is the geomuseum. The geomuseum, I think we can realize a good part within a year from now. Whether we are ready to actually say, okay, let's open it now, I cannot say now. It's not impossible. But I'm also, as you say, I'm also realistic. It could be that we need more time. Could be. But I would say sometime next year is not impossible for the museum. But that's as far as specific as I would want to make it. Is that a reasonable thing to say?
Yes.
And for the other parts, there are, well, we have a hiking club. Very active, looking after trails, documenting. We will use many of these trails. We have to talk to owners still. We have to prepare all kinds of stuff. But there is a lot already going on and has been going on for over a year. Now, when this will be opened, let's say, I don't want to say a date now. Would not be a serious prediction. I'm a scientist, not a politician, so I don't promise things if I know them. He's a scientist and a politician. Anyway, other questions? Any comments people would like to make, to add, maybe? Our participants really from all over. I'm absolutely amazed. The Turkish group, we have
I think one thing I would want to stress is that you talked a lot about...
Speak up.
One thing you said was about exchange of materials. I think the important point to make is if people are meeting and exchanging, they don't just exchange material goods, they clearly exchange ideas and thoughts and beliefs. So it's much more broader in terms of the cultural exchange, rather than just say, if you give me a piece of jade, I'll give you a piece of fish or whatever, but then you probably talk and communicate, so it's much broader in that context. And that's why understanding how these networks have developed over time is so important, because it's ideas, beliefs,
it's culture,
as well as materials.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we've discussed several papers we could do together among each other, so it's as a spin-off of it as well. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
that's the point of the network, really.
Yeah, so I just want to close by thanking people who came to the network as it exists now from really all over, and thank you very much for organizing. Thanks
Certainly,
for being
we've had a great time here in Greece, and particularly on Síro.
Yeah, well,
we're going to recommend it.
Very easy to have a good time. And thank you, Andreas, for coming down.
It's my pleasure.
And thanks to the press, of course, for being here. So, dinner time shortly, unless we need to do more substantial pre-dinner discussion. There will be a lot of discussion, I think, as a result. A lot.
Are going to be published in papers soon?
Well, you know, scientists always keep publishing papers. Now, how quickly this will have an impact on the next paper, I don't know. Maybe you know.
Geological time or archaeological?
No. even political time.
Similar.
It's a continuous progress.
Yeah. It doesn't. You cannot go so quickly from a start to an end. It just wouldn't be serious.
But the results from the Síro thing would definitely create some synergy to the geopark.
Yeah. That's the immediate result. The geopark is in on this, for sure. Yeah.
I think one example, maybe I'll be rude and say, so I'm involved in a project in the Caribbean, which has been working now for 5 years. and we have just opened an exhibition on 14 of the islands in the Caribbean to present our results, and that took 6 years from beginning to end. So this project is beginning now, so everybody would love to give results within 1 year, but that's unrealistic. 4 or 5 years time, I'm sure there will be many publications, the Geopark will be there will be big exhibitions saying, okay, we now know a rock from Syros was found in central Turkey, in northern Bulgaria, wherever, and that's the sort of thing that will come, but it will take a few years before people will believe that the data is 100% validated, and that's the stage we're at now, proving that the methods are correct, and that if George does something and I do something and we get the same results and we agree on the interpretations, and that will maybe take a few years before we all agree exactly how we're going to do that.
This was the core of the discussion in Athens. How do we do it? What methods exactly? And also in terms of interaction, who does what? The question is, what's enough? And the answer is, we don't know.
Well, the other aspect is, in many cases, we do our measurements and we come up with interpretations, and they create more questions.
Standard deal. That's what science is all about. Anyway, thank you all, and thank you for coming down and sharing, because it needed an audience. So I think we'll close here and move on to more substantial things. Food.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Hungry.
Yes. And thirsty.
Yeah, yeah.
Or whatever you want to use, because that would fall exactly the wrong. You said the wrong side.
What time? 6 o'clock. Nearly 9 o'clock.